welcome to the show. This is Powerful People of San Diego, and this is a series of the Vintners in San Diego County. We have with us here today Jeanine and Ed Embly, who are the owners of the Hungry Hawk Vineyards in San Diego. And incidentally, Ed is also the president of the San Diego Vintners Association. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I hope you're here to educate us about how many wineries are there in San Diego?
We have 117 currently in San Diego County.
And it didn't always used to be that way. What has happened to make it easier for people to have a winery in San Diego County, if they have the money?
If they have the, yeah. The regulations actually changed in 2010 with the passage of a revised zoning ordinance. And what they did, they allowed an individual, if you owned property, if you planted a vineyard, you were considered just a further processing of your crop for sale. And so they made it's a regulation that doesn't require necessarily permits to start with. Building permits and such are required, but the actual permit to operate a winery on the local level is not required.
That's great. So Jeanine, what the economics of wineries in San Diego is very important. In fact, there's a huge economic impact. Can you address that?
Better addressed by Ed,
okay.
actually.
Yeah.
Actually, we did a survey. The Vintners Association did a survey in 2017, which was a revision of the 2016 survey, and the economic impact of our industry to the county is above $50 million.
That's big money.
Yes, and that accounted for about $26 million in direct sales.
Wow, that's a lot of money coming into San Diego County that didn't exist a few years ago.
Yes, and there's tax income that comes with it. So
Diane Jacobs is very happy she helped you guys out.
Yes, and we're very happy that, or very pleased with everything she's done to help the industry and the small farmers in the county out.
So you're married, and did you start your vineyard before your marriage or after?
No, we've been married 48 years, and actually we started the vineyard about 9 years ago, 9 to 10 years ago. So it was something that we started in retirement.
I see.
It started as a hobby, and it kind of grew from there.
So you're a retired Marine, and you had a full life as a businessman.
Yes.
And is that indicative of the other people who start wineries in San Diego? What kind of people start one?
Yeah, I'd say the majority of the winery owners and the people that have started in the wine business, especially in the last 10 years, they're mainly professional people, doctors, engineers, someone that has retired or is close to retirement, and they're kind of looking for something to do in their retirement that's challenging, and they can work with their hands generally. It's usually a hands-on industry.
And then I would assume they like wine.
Yes, I don't think you really want to get into the industry without the enjoyment of a nice glass of wine. So that's our...
Jeanine, what does it take? You've been on the inside of doing the paperwork and everything that it takes to run a winery. What does it take for somebody to do what you do?
Flexibility and just go after it, do it attitude, being open. There's new challenges every single day, and I learn something new every single day. So starting over basically at our age has been a really neat thing to do.
Exciting stuff. What's the biggest challenge you managed to overcome starting a brand new winery?
A couple of challenging things are really getting the proper employees. They have to be customer service oriented because our whole industry is oriented to customer service.
Yes, but people who sell wine in San Diego County don't always grow their own grapes. Now you grow your own grapes. What kind?
Yeah. To clarify that a little bit, through the ordinance, you're required to grow 25% of your own grapes if you are a boutique winery in the county.
Which is what we are.
Which majority of the 117, that's the classification they'd fall under. Ourselves, we grow 15 different varietals, 5 whites and 10 reds. It really, and with that, being a small winery, that goes along with customer service. Having a variety of different types of wines for a person to taste when they come into the tasting room is really a benefit, because with those 15 varieties, we make from 20 to 25 different straight varietals or blends every year.
Who does the blending?
Who? Our son, who is our winemaker.
Yes.
Does he have a degree in?
No,
No,
does
he just
not.
has taste
Does
buds.
not. He's very good.
He's
Yes,
actually a
very-
business major, which fits
That-
very well
that
into
helps.
the business.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
In any business.
And so what does somebody look for when they're blending wines? Different grapes, varietals?
Some of it, actually get out of books or reference material what a standard might be. And you start from there, and then you really blend it to your personal taste or what you think your clientele's taste might be.
That's a big guess.
In our case, we mainly make dry wines, which are not sweet. And generally, the sweeter the wine, the less discerning a palate a
Sure.
person has a lot of times.
In general, that's always true. Yes.
Yes.
And so you do 5 whites and 5 reds. What are the
10
other?
reds.
10 reds.
10
I
reds.
see. And which of the reds? You have a Burgundy or what?
Well,
what do you choose?
they're.
And how did you make that selection?
Well, when we first started the planting, we looked around the area, and there was one large winery, Orfila Winery, not too far from us. And we talked to the people there and asked them what varietals they grow. And so pretty much from that interaction, we decide, well, if they have proven it over the last 40 years, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, so those are the varieties we'd start with. You gain experience, and then you might be able to expand that, which we did, to other varietals. And some varietals normally aren't suited for real warm weather, but a lot of times the viticultural side of growing the grapes, you can adapt them to the climate that we have.
Wonderful. So let's talk about our climate. We have a variety of microclimates throughout
Yes.
San Diego County. Let's talk about your area and then the other areas in San Diego County.
Okay. Our area is inland at 600,000 feet, or 600 feet, excuse me. Our winery is located at 600 feet, just to the west end of the San Pasqual Valley. We get a lot of coastal influence from an evening breeze that even when we have hot weather, it does cool off during the evening.
And why is that important to grapes?
Well, grapes really, it's not an easy question to answer, but the whole physiology of the plant, if it does get very warm during the day, the cooling period at night tends to reinvigorate them. If they get dehydrated during the day, that helps them rebuild the water within the plant and the leaves especially, because that's where all the food's manufactured.
Right.
So it's very important to have that cooling effect on the grapes.
So I'm in Tierra-Sana. That means Tierra-Sana shouldn't be growing grapes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the terroir of the area that you have.
Okay, our terroir
Wait,
really.
please tell the general public, what is terroir?
Oh,
It's
terroir.
the only word I know, so I'm going to use it over and over.
Terroir is really, it's a word that's derived from earth. So it's really what the earth or the ground where you plant, what is it consisted of, and the makeup of the soil. Because the terroir can be, the earth can be, from sand to cobbles to clay to many different attributes of the soil, and a lot of time grape plants do very well under harsh conditions. So just because it's a very lush type of soil that you can grow anything in doesn't necessarily make it the best suited terroir for grape plants, because you do want them to be stressed a little bit.
A little bit. So what is your terroir in your area?
Ours really goes from a sandy loam to a clay. We have an elevation difference of maybe 100 feet. We have slopes to different directions, north, south, and east and west. And each really, along with the microclimates that is involved, presents another growing opportunity for grapes.
And you have to make a decision about a different type of grape for each little different microclimate and
Yes.
terroir.
Yes,
And
yes.
so do you change that from year to year, or you make the decision and move on?
Normally, a grapevine, when you plant it, it's a 25-year investment.
Holy cow.
Yeah, because it takes at least 3 years for the plant to start producing, and they're really not considered an adult plant until maybe 7 years. There are differences in the variety, but in general, and that's pretty much all I can talk about is in general.
So the kind of wine that you would get from a 3-year-old producing is totally different than a 7-year-old. The kind of grapes.
Yeah, it can be if you try to produce the same level. What we do with the young plant, we try not to let it mature a large quantity of grapes. So it's able to ripen the number of clusters that we leave on the plant, as opposed to an older plant, it can produce more and it can ripen those to the full potential.
So how old will grapevines live?
I mean, there's grapevines out there that live hundreds of years even.
Really?
But in general, the biggest threat to a grapevine is funguses.
Which wiped out the entire French crop at one point.
Yes, and so it's something that we always are careful about when we're doing pruning or any process in the or step in the vineyard to protect the plant from fungus or spores entering the plant that can be harmful.
And of course, with wet air comes fungus.
Yes, and you know, and like this time of year where we're starting to get ready for our pruning, we will not prune 3 days before or 3 days after a rainstorm because the rain tends to get the spores from fungus distributed in the air, which would infect the plant.
Right, and later on, would you do some pruning and show us what that it takes?
Yes,
because that's a real skill. That's not just something I could go up to your place to whack things off.
You could, but the plant might not like it.
That
it
would
might
be
not
bad.
produce anything then.
That would be bad. So it's really critical how you prune. But aren't there different thoughts about types of pruning as well?
Yeah, there's there's
Schools
different
of thought.
styles of growing plants, but 2 main pruning methods. One is spur pruning, where you have a bunch of little spurs on a long cross arm where you let the plants grow from, and the other is you let canes grow out. And it's much more, we don't practice cane pruning, so I'm not an expert at it, but it is another method that's used on certain varieties, do better on cane pruning than spur pruning. Cane pruning, your fruit will develop on last year's main arm, and what happens, it tends to be more fruitful towards the end of that shoot.
And so that's the benefit of pruning it correctly.
Yes.
To get I understand. Let's talk about how San Diego County, the wine that we produce in this county, how it's different from French wine or New York wine or Middle East wine.
It's because of the climate, warm weather. And with the warm weather, we generally don't let our grapes ripen as much as they might in Northern California. Because if we did try to ripen them that much, the plants, when it gets so warm, they have a hard time, say, getting the sugar levels over 24%.
Yeah.
And what would happen after that, they might get more sugar accumulation, but they dehydrate. And when they start doing that, we lose some of our flavors. So we have probably a little bit lighter red wine. Our white wines are very comparable, but our red wines are probably a bit lighter.
Very drinkable.
Very drinkable. They don't necessarily need to age 20 years for them to be at full flavor. So a lot of our reds are perfectly aged in 10 years, let's say. But
That's
very
cool.
drinkable in 2 to 3.
Oh, right away.
Yes.
So what kind of people come to the wine tasting rooms that all of the vintners seem to have?
Yeah, I mean, the tasting...
Wonderful people.
There are great customers. People come to the tasting rooms in the county really looking for the experience. Whether they're really dedicated wine drinkers or not, in most cases, since our wineries are out in the country, and they're usually small, our customers come and visit, and they really enjoy talking to the owners or the winemaker. It's more a social affair than just going in and bottoms up on a glass of wine.
Right.
And it's usually in a very comfortable setting with
And
nice views.
gorgeous. I have not seen a winery in San Diego that's not spectacular.
Yes. So as opposed to many areas, you can take all the wineries in the county are very approachable, and you'll come and you can enjoy an afternoon
enjoying the winery people as well as the drink.
Yes. Yes.
And when you guys have your meetings, what kind of things do you talk about at the San Diego Vintners Association?
Well, it is an organization it's run by a board of directors, but we do interact with our members monthly in monthly meetings. So we're open to any suggestions. A lot of the decisions are made at board meetings, but then we discuss those decisions with the members to make sure that that is what everybody wants. But on top of that, it's really a social occasion for the members to get together, discuss new things.
Swap wine recipes.
Right. we even a lot of times will bring a wine to share, to show to
I would hope so.
our fellow members. But also we do educational programming. The new things that are out there in technology for growing grapes, making wine. We have different speakers come in and they'll give us updates on new things.
And don't you have a major fundraiser once a year?
We do. And our major fundraiser is a wine festival.
Ooh.
And so this year it's going to be put on on May 18th. It's a Saturday, and it's at the Sykes, S-I-K-E-S, Historical Farmstead, just south of the Westfield Mall in North County.
I don't know about the Sykes Historical Vineyards. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, it's not really a vineyard. It's an old ranch house, and it's an adobe ranch house that's been around for a long time. Now it's been kind of swallowed up by the development in the area, but it is part of the trail that goes from the ocean to the mountains.
Oh,
so it's right along that trail that connects. Off the top of my head, I don't remember which it is, but yeah.
People go. So, how many people typically show up to this?
We can accommodate about 250 to 300 people. Generally, we'll have 20 to 25 different wineries. In a lot of cases, in the past, we have done a wine and food festival. But since we're really a winery or a vintners association, we decided this year we will have food, but that's not going to be our main focus of the event.
So can you show us what the pruning methods are?
Yes.
So Joe is going to come over and hand you some branches that you kindly brought from. Did you bring this from your vineyard?
Yeah, this came from a vineyard. Actually, one of our vines sacrificed one of its spurs. And so
Joe?
Yeah, so this particular vine, or this spur, would be on a long vine that's held up by a wire that supports it. So this is growth. Everything on this vine, I don't need that piece. Everything on this vine, this is the growth from last year. So
down here?
What, from here.
Okay, from here.
From here. So, and in a grapevine, all the fruiting is done on new growth.
Got it.
So what we do, we
Just
go
like
through.
Roses.
Pardon?
Just like roses.
Yes. No, it's very similar to a rose, and they have similar problems with fungal diseases also. So what we do this time of year, we'll go through with a hedge trimmer and just cut off
at that area
these shoots at about a foot above the plant. Because the reason we do that, we can get a lot of the excess growth out, so we don't have to deal with it. And then when we come to our final pruning, which I'll show you how we do that, we come back and, okay, I'm going to make a cut here on this particular thing. So
can we get a close up on this on camera?
Yeah, so.
Hold a little higher. There.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. There, okay.
Okay, so with the hedge trimmer, we'll take about this amount of the plant off. So we get rid of a lot of material. And if we did have, it's not as critical as far as when you prune it, because if you get a fungal growth, fungus invade very slowly.
Okay.
So with this cut, and the plant's dormant at this time, we don't have to worry about the fungus entering into the whole plant system. So, but it is critical when we come back to do our final pruning, in that we would like to leave 1 or 2 buds for the next year's shoots to come out of. So, and there again, it varies a lot, but it's a very precise thing to do. We'll want to make an angled cut, and that angle of that cut is going to be away from this new bud, because once it starts growing again, it'll start weeping, and we don't want to drown out this new bud. So sometimes we might leave 1 new shoot, sometimes we might leave 2. So if we're just going to leave 1, we'd cut this one off, but maybe this plant we want is old enough that can mature more, ripen more fruit.
Yes.
We'll take another cut. Excuse me there.
It's okay.
So that's what the plant's going to look like when we come around to the next season's start of
Cut
growth.
everything off.
Yes.
But that's
Yes.
because it needs room to grow again.
Yes,
And
because everything's going to fruit on the new
so
growth.
And basically, if you don't trim it, you're not going to get very
Well,
much.
what
very much.
happens a lot of times, you'll get a lot of different, it'll end up to being a bush instead of a controlled vine. And you'll end up with a lot of small little grape clusters that might not ripen.
And that's what happens in home when people grow grapes in their backyard.
Yes, they usually try and ripen too much fruit, and so they don't get the flavors and the attributes of a wine grape that we're really looking for, and that all is determined by how much you let ripen on the plant.
How many hours does the average vineyard owner spend doing this in the yard, so to speak?
Well, the easiest way to say, let's take an acre of grapevines.
Okay.
Just in the pruning process, we'd come through and with a hedge trimmer, it might take 5 hours to roughly prune the vineyard with a hedge trimmer. And coming back and doing these final cuts would probably take more like maybe 2 days. It could be 16 hours of labor to do that.
Serious days.
One thing we do also, though, for all this trimming that we do by hand, we actually use an electronic shear, so you don't have to worry about carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
And it's
Makes
really
all the difference.
a time saver, and it keeps problems from your wrist developing.
But you're still out there 16 hours. That's a long time.
You can spread it out a little bit, but you do have to work between the weather. We have to have it finished before the plant starts regrowth.
Right.
So it's a timing issue, and we can't say, well, we're going out February 12th and do our pruning. It depends on what Mother Nature hands
Chooses to do.
us.
Yeah, so some days it's long days and other days it's shorter days.
Yes.
Then he gets grumpy for those 16-hour days coming.
Yes. Yes.
Get me a glass of wine, honey.
Yeah, we usually have a range of time when it has to be done. A lot of the processes or steps in growing grapes can be plus or minus a few days.
Well, we're coming up to our last couple of minutes here.
Okay.
I'm so glad that you've been with us to see Jeanine and Ed Embly from the Hungry Hawk Vineyards, and also the president of the San Diego Vintners Association, which has a huge, huge impact in our San Diego economy. So, Ed, is there anything educational you'd like to tell our public?
Well, one of the main bases of either in the vineyard or in the winery, sanitation, cleanliness, it's probably the one thing that we could emphasize to all of our members and even to the general public, that if they would like to walk out in a vineyard, we really prefer them not to do that, because you could be transmitting diseases. And the same thing in a lot of spaces. We try and keep them as clean and pristine as possible, because that all carries through the final product, and we all want our wine to be top notch.
Top notch. And it's my understanding you won some awards with some of your wines.
Yes, we have. We've well, to tell you the truth, we do enter 4 or 5 major contests a year. I know last year one of our wines, a recent Winemakers Challenge here that's held in San Diego County, we won a gold medal, and actually the Cabernet was rated the best Cabernet of the show.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
All right, I'll be over there next week. Okay. So thank you so much for. Jeanine, is there anything else you'd like to tell the public?
Get out and wine taste. No matter where you go in San Diego County, there are award-winning wineries and winemakers for you to enjoy.
Here in San Diego. That's well said from the San Diego Vintners Association.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you here next week with another amazing winery here in San Diego. Have a great day.
Welcome to 1 Minute and 1 Vineyard. My name is Ed Embly, and I'm the president of the San Diego County Vintners Association. And what I want to do today, I'm going to demonstrate how we prune a grapevine. The vines that we have in our vineyards now are dormant, which is represented with this plant here. So what we'll do, we'll go through first and remove a lot of the excess plant material. This is something that is not real critical. We can do it even ahead of time. But when we come to the final cuts, we want to make sure that we don't do it 3 days before a rain or 3 days after a rain, because of the chance of a fungal infection in our plant. So when we get to that point to do our final cuts, we'll come through and remove the rest of the plant material. And then our final cut, we want to save 1 or 2 buds for next year's growth. So we come through here and we make an angled cut away from the bud. So if we do have any weeping from the cut, it won't drown out our bud that's going to be our next year's shoot. So from this little stub here, we'll get our next year's growth. And on a grapevine, all of the production takes place on new growth. So we want to be very critical of this. And actually, this spur is located on a cordon on the plant. And so this is really just representative of our whole plant. So thank you for joining us, and goodbye.
Hi, this is 1 Minute, 1 Vineyard. My name's Ewan Parker. I'm the winemaker at Fallbrook Winery in San Diego. San Diego now has a lot of vineyards and wineries that are up and coming, making some really good wines that people don't often know about in San Diego. There's about 100 wineries now waiting for you to go and see. San Diego is growing in quality and stature in terms of what is out there and what you can buy. So I advise you that if you like wine, find the style you like, go to a vineyard, try that style, and find the wine that suits you. There's plenty to choose from. We ourselves, Fallbrook Winery, have 30 different types of wine to choose. Please come and visit us at Fallbrook Winery or any of the SDCVA vineyards. We look forward to seeing you. My name is Ewan Parker from Fallbrook Winery, and this has been 1 Minute, 1 Vineyard.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Colley. I'm the Education Chair for the San Diego County Vintners Association and also the co-owner, co-proprietor of Wolf and Rose Winery up in Ramona, California, in the Ramona Valley viticultural area. Welcome to One Winery, 1 Minute spot. What I want to talk about today is a question I often get from people. It's how good it must feel at the end of our harvest season that I can sit down and put my feet up. But that's not really true. The growing season starts in the spring when we prune the vines, goes through the summer where we spray for mildew, we put up bird netting to protect the vines from the birds, and then our harvest in the fall, usually in September, October. And that's when people think I should be sitting down to rest. But actually not, because that's when it's time to start making the wine. And then after the wine is done, it's springtime and we're ready to start pruning again and start the cycle all over again. Thank you so much.